So let's try and see more Overwatch 2 instead. Why not? Here we go. So this came out in January 2022, January the 21st. This is a leaked scrim. I need to move my camera again. This is a leaked scrim from the Boston Uprising, who are in the pink, and the Florida Mayhem, who are in the blue. That's very confusing, I know, because usually Florida are pink, but hey, and usually Boston are blue, but hey, you got to wrap your head around it. That's the problem. And it's what, I don't know if this is an official workshop build that has been given to the teams. I can only assume that it's either an official build or it's something that has been put together. Much like how the Paris Eternal did when they were, trying out players. But I thought it would be interesting. This is something I wanted to do last week, before obviously I decided not to stream instead. But there's a lot of really interesting things that happened in this game. I've watched it through already, and I'm quite excited. If they give us all the same maps and make us pay for it, I might cry. I would be surprised if the Overwatch 2 multiplayer component wasn't free, based on the model that most games have gone down. In particular, I look at Halo. Halo has gone free to play for its multiplayer, which is unheard of for the Halo franchise. Apex, obviously. Valorant is an absolute kicker as well. Fortnite, I hate Fortnite, but Fortnite, you've got all of these, big, Call of Duty Warzone. You have all of these big FPS titles that now go down the free-to-play model because it makes sense. Destiny 2 is free-to-play. It's the most conceivable model that's working at the moment, and you have to assume that they will have to treat it very similarly. I don't see them making it not free-to-play. Density good. Okay, right. So I'm gonna take a look at this. I'm gonna take a quick old look at this. I've already watched this through a couple of times, but I'll try and detail the couple of things that I've noticed off the bat. So first of all, composition. Interestingly enough, these are the things that they run out with first, but they obviously changed these. I've heard a lot of rumblings that people think that D.Va is going to be very, very meta when this league starts, unsurprisingly, because of the amount of verticality that she can execute. She's also incredibly versatile at both shielding and being offensive in terms of the dive. I've come back from Lurk. Is that one tank per team and 700 HP? Yeah, so basically, Rose, this is a leaked scrim between Boston and Florida. And the idea is that I don't know if this is an official workshop build or if it's a build made by the teams, but it's to help them scrim, which is where you do practice games against each other in preparation for the league, which is really interesting. Yes, that's the other thing. D.Va has 700 health in here. It looks nearly like a 50-50 split between armor and health, but that would make sense to weather a lot more of the damage that would otherwise be distributed between two tanks. So, yeah, interesting. Very, very interesting. Obviously, Boston are kicking off with a Winston, with an Echo, with a Tracer, and with an Ana Brig backline. Very similar to usual, what we've seen this season a lot. And Florida are going for a Pharmacy with a Widowmaker. Now, the prediction going into this was that the Pharmacy, stuff where there's not another tank to peel, DPS heroes could run riot, especially your Widowmakers would essentially be able to run riot. But what I find interesting about this scrim, and what you guys will see in a minute, is that Widowmaker doesn't actually end up being massively powerful, not at the very least on Dorado at this point. So here you see Boston do a little swapperoo. Boston change into an Echo Tracer instead to combat that Pharmacy. See what happens. Just see what happens. One thing you're also going to see in the next couple of minutes about this scrim is that Echo is so strong. And I highlighted this a little while back. I was on Sideshow stream, and we were talking about what 5v5 meant, and I said, well, Echo's going to be very strong then, because the duplicate mechanic is just going to make an ultimate teamfight win very easy. Really nice dive by Valentine, kills Arnamo straight away. This is another thing you can see as well, actually. If you guys take a look at certain points during these fights, especially in the when the fights are over and people have still got limited health, watch how in this build the supports will end up having their health regenerate over time, much like they announced when they announced the Overwatch 2 changes anyway. So that I found was actually incredibly interesting. I don't know if they've done anything to sort of like the speed of the DPS players, you know, but we'll see what happens. I got no noti. Well, that is very sad, Lemon. Also, welcome. We're doing some stuff. We're watching some scrims. This is a leaked workshop build, and it's Florida versus Boston, and the divas are essentially running like wild here, which is interesting. Someone also got picked up for Florida this season. I actually think he's looked really good in this scrim, but again, I've already watched this scrim, so I'm just trying to highlight some bits for you. So there, did you see it with Mercy? Mercy's health regen, but that's just typical of Mercy. It's the Arnas that you want to watch. Arnas actually getting their health back without having any resources piled into them, which is really, really interesting. Obviously, you can see that Florida is still continuing to try and run this pharmacy at this point, but it's the increased pressure that is occurring from Boston, which I think is making this not very viable. So when you're devoting resources, like look at Valentine. Valentine is just able to get into the backline and absolutely eradicate Samajed and Checkmate. That's due to the fact that, one, there's no other tank to peel. So you've got both of these teams that are trying to go aggressive on one another, and because you've removed one of those basic components, the peel isn't really there. You take Mercy and attach them to Pharah, you're basically putting all of your strategy on getting the picks before the enemy team does first, in my opinion. And that's also one less person to help heal your backline. So Checkmate and Samajed just go down. You know, it's all up to someone to be able to peel for them. And that's quite difficult if you're trying to dive and go aggressive as well. So in this instance, Boston's Tracer and Boston's Echo combination works really, really well here. Mira does manage to find a pick, though, which is useful. Someone gets Marvel out of the mech. The fights just feel so scrappy. It's really, really interesting how like they go back and forth, not like they used to, whereby, you know, you could get one pick and then just sort of like dominate an opposition team back in 6v6. Obviously, this isn't final. None of this is final. This is just a leak. We don't even know what this build is, but I find it really interesting. Another thing to keep an eye on here, this over here. So one of the key components of good dive comps last year, especially, was an Ana Winston synergy. So Ana would build up the nano boost. Ana would then nano a Winston who didn't have their ultimate. Winston would go into the backline, have a lot of damage, probably have a lot of more survivability, be able to get a pick off of one of the supports and build up their primal in the process. And then if you're Ana, you're just pumping this healing into the Winston so that you start to get your ultimate back as well. It was a synergy that works. It's a basic combination. It works really, really well. Now take that same concept and this time apply it to the idea of an Ana and an Echo. So Echo dives into your backline, you've nano boosted them, Echo doesn't have an ultimate, you burn down the supports with the amount of sheer damage that you're able to push out onto the enemy backline, and then what happens is Ana is getting their ultimate back, and Echo gets an ultimate. Echo dupes into a tank, and then you basically have a team fight win. And especially if it's a diva, an aggressive tank, where you can dive really hard with your team's Tracer, that's basically a team fight win. And you'll see it in a second how effective that really, really is at this level with 5v5. That might not be effective in the final build of the game, but right now in this scrim, it's really effective. And you'll see in a second. So here we go. There's a nano boost out. MCD already picks off the Mercy. Valentine is duplicated into a diva. So there's now two divas on the side of Boston here. And Samajed is just getting absolutely beaten down by Valentine. Marvel's just gone and killed Mirror as well. Like, this is the only time in this scrim is when they do the nano boost onto the Echo, and Echo uses an ult and dupes into a tank, that they get an absolutely dominant teamfight win. Otherwise, it retains being relatively scrappy. So Mirror looks like they've just used their ultimate, they've burnt it, which means that they're probably going to swap out. And I think this ends up being a bit of a mirror match. I can't remember entirely, but we'll see what happens. Mirror going into the 76, sorry. Mirror goes into 76 to try and deal with the Pharah. Not the Pharah, the Echo, sorry. And both teams have once again gone into good old-fashioned Ana Brig or Zen Brig. Once again, I cannot understate the importance of the Brigitte now. I actually would like to have my cursor. Get my cursor back in here as well. Hello? Hello? Can I have my, this? Thank you. I want my cursor back just so that I can actually, like, point to things and you guys can see it. But take a look at this. Can you see my cursor? Is my cursor here? I want... Can I? No cursor? Okay, that's sad. RIP cursor. Don't worry about it. Hey, there it is. Okay, cool. No, I cannot see cursor. Neither could I. Now we can, though. There it is. Okay, so once again, Brigitte is about to become an absolutely instrumental component in the way that Overwatch 2 works, in my opinion. Obviously, I cannot continue to stress enough, this is probably likely to change, but these basic concepts I think are going to carry through to the game, especially at the beginning of its conception, unless a radical patch and radical character changes actually occur. Not just sort of like minuscule ones that sort of adapt them for the game, but like radical ones. So the importance of Brigitte now for your flex support or for your support that's easily diveable is absolutely monumental. With no extra tank to be able to peel for the backline, you are heavily reliant on a Brigitte to be able to A, stop any dive onto your backline, and B, pump out enough healing for the rest of the team. Now, they've always been like that, but just the fact that there's one less player to be able to help with that makes him an instrumental component. I also don't really know how much that's going to stick, based on the fact they've already said that they're trying to remove stuns. So Brigitte is probably not going to have like the shield bash stunning people, which I think is actually baked into this build, and I'll show you where that is in a second. But it's really interesting. Obviously, Discord is out here so that they can try and burn down Valentine, and Valentine's Echo is bloody good on Boston. So we'll simply see what happens. Anyway, ults are all in the bank for Boston. This should be an easy win for Boston, really. Brig may be accurate, actually a sub-tank. Maybe. Potentially. We'll simply just have to see. Okay, so Marvel actually using the bomb aggressively. That's something I found really, really interesting watching the scrim as well. The Divas don't just use their bombs like they have done in previous seasons where they just use it to get back into a mech. They start using their bombs aggressively to initiate team fights a lot more often and to try and get picks instead, which is interesting. Victoria taking down Mirror. Valentine is just absolutely cracked. And already you can see MCD is 15% up to the ultimate. Valentine is just absolutely burned through the backline. Can we go back a second? I want to know how Valentine actually managed to get in there. Okay, they went in with Marvel. Marvel is basically not pocketing them, but Marvel is really helping them execute that without taking too much damage. They were really trying to get the enemy supports there. Mega interesting. Hyper mega interesting. Honestly, I had a really, really good time watching this the first 2 times through. I can't remember every single point that I had, but there's still a lot of things I've remembered. Look at that. A dive from Victoria. Love that. Usually you'd have a Winston maybe going with them, or the Diva, but it depends. Okay, here we go. It's happening again. This team fight doesn't actually go the way of Boston, so my point is basically invalidated here, but you can still see the thinking from the Boston Uprising and how they want to take these fights. MCD has put a nano boost onto Valentine to try and weather a lot of like the damage and get a lot of aggression out. They've already burnt down Mirror using it. That's really, really good. Valentine is at 82% to the ultimate, so this is probably going to charge it if they don't die. Whoops, that's why Samajed is literally playing as a Zenyatta. Put the damage orb on him and see if they can burst him down before, you know, Valentine absolutely annihilates the rest of the team. And someone does. And that's a really good focus fire coming out of there from Florida. Really impressive. And they actually managed to bash him back a little bit, which is decent. High ground control is firmly in Florida's camp. And I found this really, really interesting. Notice how... Coming back a little bit here. Notice how everything that occurs with the supports, they are literally pathing everywhere together. And you will see it as the rest of the scrim plays out, but they path around this map everywhere together. They are inseparable. Just because of the lack of peel from a tank and the lack of mobility that Ana actually has, that Brigitte is quite literally attached to the way that Ana plays. And I know that's already quite a component of high-level gameplay, but it's just interesting to see how that's being executed in 5v5 and just how much more instrumental it actually is. So they actually take Marvel as well, and they path around the back, leaving Valentine and Victoria to start to move the payload. This is interesting. Hold on. There we go. We can still see it here. So the reason why they've pathed, especially on Dorado at the very least, the reason why that they've pathed MCD and Blueberry all the way around the back here is because this is much better positioning for the supports to be in than over here and out in the open. This makes a lot of sense. If you try to fight in this little area, Brigitte is obviously a lot more devastating to fight against. You get a lot more value from being in close quarters combat against a Brigitte. Ana also has a really good view of everything. If your DPS are up here, you can see them. Your DPS are around the cart, you can basically see them. And they're also keeping Marvel in a position where Marvel can still actually get a lot of value out of like the D.Va's damage, but also is in a position to be able to peel, to touch the payload. It's just solid positioning. I just find it really, really interesting that they've had to put themselves in that position. And unlike where you have 6v6, there's not really anybody to contest that. It's not easy to be able to contest that. One thing that I noticed as well when I was watching this scrim, and we'll see if we can see it while it plays. Okay, there's a counter dive. I'll explain it in a second. Nice sleep there, though, from MCD. Animo on high ground. Valentine's going to try burst him down. Valentine succeeds. Did you see that? Okay, hold on. Changing point here. I'm going to try and slow this down a little bit because I want to show you why this is interesting. Do you remember how I said that Brigitte doesn't have the actual stun from the shield bash in this version of the game? This is an example of it. That there would have typically stopped Valentine from getting their ultimate off. Instead, it does a bit of damage. I don't even know how much damage, not a massive amount. It was nearly enough to kill him. I think they survived by the skin of their teeth, really, Valentine, but it wasn't able to stun them. And that's really, really interesting that's actually baked into this version of the game. So whoever's made this, if this is from the league, if this is like somebody that's made this, a lot of thought has gone into it. It's smart. It's good stuff. Now, here we go again. You're now looking at Echo Valentine is actually going back into, there we go, back into another main tank. Two main tanks going at it. And all of a sudden, you are just able to go super aggressive on the enemy team. Marvel also eats Checkmate's bomb. Boosh. Nice from Blueberry. Very nice from Blueberry. And they get through to the end. I was trying to make another point, wasn't I? Before this. Oh yeah, I remember. So something that happens for the most part at high level play is that you can sit your tanks on the payload because they have a lot more health. They don't get weathered down as easily. They have a lot of survivability on that point. Nice bomb from Victoria. Aggressive bomb? That's an aggressive bomb there from Marvel. But what you usually see, Mirror then swatches into the Echo. This is nearly the same composition. Mirror compositions almost. So typically what you will get with the payload is that you usually have, at a lower level of gameplay, tanks can sit on it because of their survivability. At the higher level of gameplay, especially with dive comps where you have faster characters that are aggressive, like your Traces, your Echoes of this world, what's happening is they usually juggle payload control, especially on defense. You want to juggle that. You want to have people coming on, jumping off, getting a bit of healing, coming back on and whatnot, because otherwise you are just going to get burnt down. That, I found in this version of the game, doesn't happen as effectively. It's interesting as to why that doesn't happen. I'm going to see if I can remember why I thought that doesn't happen as much as we watch this more, but it's just a really, really interesting point that they're unable to juggle as much. And I think, once again, it's down to the fact that there has been a tank removed. You really have to be selective with when you want to be defensive and when you want to go aggressive in this game with a dive, because the lack of an extra tank changes where you can basically divert your resources in the form of player sort of like pressure. It's interesting. Even if this isn't like an accurate build, you know, maybe there's things in this that just are not it yet for the game. Here we go again. And Nano, there we go. It's happened again. Nano onto Valentine. Valentine goes in, tries to get ultimate up. Doesn't succeed just due to the fact that Samajed actually had a Transcendence, but still the gameplay loop persists. Really interesting. Really, really interesting. They still win the fight out anyway. And look, Valentine is already at 80% ultimate. Let's see that again. When does the Nano go on? Wait, listen for it. There. 26 to 80% in the space of just under 30 seconds. That is ridiculous. That's a massive ultimate. It just proves that the cycle works, you know? Valentine probably would have got a lot more value out of it if Samajed didn't actually have Transcendence there, but at the same time, you know, they still managed to get the ultimate percentage up, like super high as well. So once again, you duplicate the main tank and you go in for another fight. I think you have to do something absolutely ridiculous in terms of balance with Echo this season to be able to stop them from being absolutely ridiculous. They burn down the support. They get rid of Samajed. Mira's also gone. Mira can't get any more of his ultimate. Valentine's on 80%. MCD's nearly halfway up for his ultimate as well. Absolutely massive. Checkmate gets burned down by Victoria as well. Tracer, I think, is going to be invaluable if there's no other tank to be able to check them. Tracer and Sombra are going to be ridiculous in this game. They're going to be absolutely ridiculous. Valentine's got another ultimate coming in. Look at it. There it is. Duplicates the Diva. Has already taken out Mira. This is basically game, set, match for Boston and this version of the client. It is so interesting. It's really, like, don't get me wrong, not a lot of these concepts are new, and I continue to stress the fact that we simply aren't going to know. We're just not going to know what this is actually going to play like until we get the actual reworks and balance changes for the heroes to suit the 5v5 style. But what we are able to see from this at the very, very least is base concepts that are from the original game being brought through and modified. We're also able to see what teams are already starting to think might be strong, experiment with it. Some of the stuff is remaining from the last couple of seasons of competitive play. Some stuff is radically different. And it's the space difference that is almost left vacant by the fact that there is no other tank. It's really interesting to see what is effective and what's really not by the lack of that other presence on the battlefield. It's interesting. Lemon in chat saying that, aren't they reworking Sombra? Yes, they are, but we've seen what those reworks are, and the reworks for Sombra are more of a buff to the damage capabilities of Sombra. Like a humongozoid buff to the damage capabilities. So actually, if anything, that just makes my point stronger. The fact that Sombra, much like Echo, much like Tracer, is going to be a flanker hero that is able to, you know, really get in and out of the fight effectively, and then also just burn down the supports. It's really, really interesting. I have to say, I'm worried for what this game is going to look like in terms of, I think DPS is really going to take over the flow of the game. Before, the flow of the game was very much based on your tanks making a lot more space, but because there's one less tank on each side, there's a lot more space for the DPS to already play around with. So they're going to be able to do so much more things, so much more crazy antics. They're going to have a much more detrimental impact on the enemy team being able to get into position, set up their supports, build their ultimates. And I don't think this gameplay is the be-all and end-all and doesn't show it entirely, but it definitely shows some stuff. I won't go on about this too much longer, but what is interesting is that the second half of this, so this is Florida attacking. What happens here is that Boston actually run a Winston defense. So there's pros and there's cons to taking the Winston here. Obviously, I said that Diva is incredibly, incredibly strong when it comes to attacking and still has a lot of defensive capability. But running a Winston here, you still get on Dorado the verticality, thanks to his jump pack. What you're also getting is a bit of a shield so that you can run things like a McCree. You can let your Ana get set up a little bit better potentially, and you can maybe weather a lot more aggression from the D.Va. But also when you're attacking as a Winston, you're probably able to get just that teeny little bit more damage onto people like Brigitte and onto the D.Va, because defense matrix, the shield, doesn't matter. The Tesla cannon is good. This is also really interesting. Hold on. Again, this version of the workshop. Let's see if we can get some Winston play. Where's the Winston play? I'll explain the McCree choice as well in a second, but I think the Winston is a... Where is it? There's definitely some Winston here somewhere. Where is it? 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 Oh, we'll find it later. But, so do you remember how with Winston, they've baked in a new ability whereby his right click is that the ranged attack. So they've actually baked that into this version of the workshop build. So Winston has a ranged attack in this version, which is awesome. I think he also has 600 health, or 600 like overall health, which is really, really cool. Let's talk about this McCree a little bit. So, not McCree, sorry, Cassidy. I'm going to have to get used to saying Cassidy at some point in my life. Seems fitting, it should be now. So this Cassidy makes sense in this current build, but I don't think this Cassidy is going to make sense by the time that Overwatch 2 actually launches. So, as I've said already, they're trying to remove stun from the game. They're trying to significantly nerf it, change it from being as dominant as it is. Makes perfect sense. But in this version of the build, because we don't know what McCree's flashbang is being replaced, Cassidy's flashbang is being replaced with, Cassidy is just basically able to stun up a diving tank, or the diving DPS. So it actually, much like Brigitte, in theory, it makes Cassidy a pseudo like dive counter, which they already are in the game today, but it makes them particularly effective, especially since they can still play from range as well. God, Marvel Winston is actually going to be very, very interesting. I'm really intrigued by it. Here we go. So they still retain that Winston defense, which is interesting. And you can see that Florida are going in with the same comp that Boston ran on offense, with the Echo, with the Ana. They're not using Brig this time. They're still using a D.Va. Makes perfect sense, really. Hey, Ray. 10 months. Ray, you're a bit of a nutcase. You've given me way too much. Thanks for the sub, my brother. Ray, have you managed to catch a lot of this? Because there's been some really interesting stuff going on here. Okay, so in this scrim here, at this point in time, Florida's still on at point 1. They only have 1 attack left, and they have a D.Va bomb to work with. Which is interesting. It's only just told me you started. I've been live for an hour. Hello? Really? Is that what's happening right now? That is very sad. Wow, Twitch. I don't appreciate it. Oh, wow. Hey, on another matter entirely, folks. I've just found out the Wario Kart Wednesday results for this season. And I'm not going to tell anyone. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, cool. We'll get on with that later. This is my VOD review time. So what did I miss? You'll have to go back and watch it. There's a lot. I've spoken about quite a lot. Lemons in chat is saying, what if literally everything? Yes. What if they were to replace Cassidy's stun with a flash where it blinds him? See, that's what I was thinking. I think that going with the blinding mechanic, stopping them from being able to see after you use the flash, is effective because it stops you from being lethal in front of them. It doesn't just give you a limp character that is unable to do anything while you burst them down with damage. But what it does do is it means that they're unable to capitalize, you know? They can still get away. They're unable to sort of like counter you. You still get the added bonus of them not being able to see, but they can still say, if it's like a Tracer, they can still like dash away and mash dash. Mash dash. So, no, I agree with that. As long as they obviously don't make it epileptic, then yeah, that would be fine. I think that's fine. I think flashes in this game is probably fine as long as they don't last too long. But I'm not entirely sure. I think that you have to have Sun Stun remain in this game. I think Stun is really important, especially since there's so much less protection for a team now. Okay, so MCD actually puts a nano out here. I can't remember who he nanos there, but they're not effective there. Someone is able just to go in on Victoria and MCD and actually burst them down. And the other 5 of them basically go back to... As I said earlier, you have 2 teams that are basically diving past each other onto the back line. You know what I'm saying? So they're able to then finish off their own dive, peel back for their supports, and then finish off the fight and close it out. This is a really interesting point up here. I think there's like a massive primal rage that happens in the corner here. So you can see that Florida are basically coming online to 4 ultimates, and Boston are going to have 3. So... I found this bit really, really interesting. Let's see what happens here. Bomb goes out. They're antied. Arnamo and Samajed are like really nastily antied, and Marvel is just able to pop off on the Primal Rage. Gets 2 or 3 with the dive. Look how much was traded out though there, both in ultimates and in just lives. Look how many like players went down there on each team. It was like 3-3. It's lethal. This version of the game is going to end up being lethal, like, unless the balance is, like, really, really well done. I think we're in for a very chaotic first season of either, like, people not knowing what they're doing and how to play the game, which I think is very likely, or we're going to see one dominant meta for the entirety of this 5th season. And I really do think that it could be this D.Va Echo stuff. Look at that. Takes high ground control, pushes them back, gets a lot of damage off onto Arnamo and someone. Like, the Winston here makes a lot of sense. The Winston here is genuinely an excellent pick. I really like it. And there's a lot of pressure. It's forcing them off the payload. They're not able to get high ground control as a result of it. It's really good. You can see that Valentine on Tracer now, instead of Echo, is really trying to get into the backline. And this is interesting here. Hold on. You're about to see a really, really good bomb. But much like normal Dorado play, the supports are trying to get set up on this side of the high ground. This is exactly what Florida were trying to do on the alternate version of this round. And this time you have the Cassidy up there with them as well. Just getting a lot of poke damage in because you have perfect sight of the payload. It makes sense. But one of the things I was saying, Ray, that you have missed, and I continue to say it, look at the supports. The supports, the Brig is glued to the flex support. They have to be glued to that flex support because of the lack of peel from the tank. Let's see what happens here. I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure there's a sick bomb. Okay, that's a really nice peel from Marvel. Marvel comes back, peels, stops D.Va from being able to do stuff. You think they're safe, and that bomb just comes out from someone. I mean, D.Va players are going to be lethal. They're going to be absolutely lethal because of the lack... This is another reason why D.Va's so strong. There's no shield. Because the enemy team doesn't necessarily have a shield, they already burst through the shield from Marvel, so they know that there's no shield on the side of Boston. You can just throw those bombs, and if you're accurate, you're going to burst down your opponent. They're going to fall. It's incredibly interesting. It's an incredibly interesting call to go 5v5 and not expect things to change dramatically. Samandra has an ultimate, but this should be Florida closing it out here, and I can't remember exactly, but it should be. No, it's not. Sorry, they don't do it, do they? It's a recontest here from Boston. God, look at the amount of healing that came out there. Look at those. Look at these bars up top here. Look how aggressively Florida dive the backline. You already have a rally popped. The nano's been popped onto someone. I'm not someone, but it's been popped onto, I think it's probably Winston. Because you can just do Nano Winston. Again, it might have even been Cassidy, but I'm not entirely sure. And they try so hard to burst them down. And they're nigh on unable to. Arno is able to stop Valentine from diving their own backline, but look, it's just ridiculous. And that, for me, is an absolute misplay from Mirror. Why is Mirror trying to duplicate the Cassidy? This is the only thing. Obviously, this is Scrim gameplay. It doesn't matter. I don't want to be necessarily mega critical of the players when they're trying to do things out. But in this instance, surely you have to try and duplicate the Winston, because 2 tanks on the field is just going to be super lethal, as we've already seen from the first half of the Scrim. And that's basically it. I'm pretty sure that's it. Yeah, look at that. There we go. Bam. Love it. There is a second half to this. Chat, you talk to me. Do you guys want to see the second half of it, where there's some real... There's not too much difference, but it's really interesting to see how Gibraltar is played as well. I think there's a lot more Cassidy on both of these teams in this version. And I also think that in this next half of the Scrim, it's just essentially a fat roll from Boston. Boston looked pretty good. And this is without Striker, because look, I mean, we know that Boston have Striker on their team. They have Striker and Crimson on their team, and instead there's no Striker. Do not mind, probably got alert code. Yeah, go chill. Go chill. I might keep going. I think I'm going to keep going for my own sake, and I'm probably going to upload this later because I think it's really, really interesting to look at, you know? Like, if this leak or not, this Scrim is out in the wild, you're able to watch it. So it's not a bad thing. It ain't a bad thing at all. Okay, so let's set the scene here. Typically on Gibraltar, this again is another map that Dive is typically played on because of the verticality. It's not a particularly good rush map, so we've yet to see with a lot of, well, with any of this Scrim footage, that we haven't seen any rush maps, we haven't seen any control, we've seen two escort maps in full, and we're going to see what happens. And the Divas are basically trying to play like Winston. Interestingly enough, though, Valentine is on the Sombra, and both of them are running Zenyatas this time. Let's have a look. Boston are the ones that are attacking. And once again, Mirror this time is emulating the Cassidy, so that they have the poke damage coming in from a distance. And again, it's basically this war over the high ground control once again. It's a little less aggressive, though. Okay, Checkmate dives in, trying to find some Majed. I'm trying to remember what happens in this Scrim, because I have watched it. But okay, yeah, this is interesting. This is me mainly critiquing... I'm really nasty here, actually. This is me critiquing Florida, because I don't think that Florida have been particularly good in this Scrim, and I don't really think that they're the strong roster this year. But take a look at this. So Mirror, I think in this aspect, is up here. They have high ground control. What I can assume that Marvel is doing here, as well as Victoria, is that both of them are going after No, wait, Checkmate's here. They're going after someone. I don't know who, but they're definitely going after someone down here. Like, no clue who. And here we go. I don't know why this happens, okay? So you're basically battling out for high ground control, right? Florida in this aspect, they must see something. They must see someone round this corner that is vulnerable, and they want to go for, and they want to dive, and they want to take out. Otherwise, there is no reason for Samajed to jump down from here. Same with Mirror. There is no reason for Mirror to jump down. And Mirror has ended up down there. As you saw from that last frame, I think Marvel and Victoria pressure Mirror, because they know that Mirror has a lot of burst damage and has a stun. And they take out Mirror, and then Samajed is already down on the floor and is, like, exposed entirely. And then it's just basically a mop-up job for Boston. I think that this bit is basically just bad positioning and bad play from Florida, or there's some reason why they've ended up going down onto the bottom part of that section of the map, because they give that up. Again, really interesting, that dynamic, because once again, there's no other tank for Peel. You can't really do much, can you? I'm trying to... honestly, guys, I'm really trying to remember what happens in the rest of the Scrim, because I'm pretty sure that there's not a lot more I want to show you, but there's still a couple of interesting concepts. Oh yeah, interestingly enough, in this game, Valentine tends to go for the hack onto Mirror quite a lot. So it's the Sombra trying to hack the McCree. I guess in this aspect, that's because the Cassidy is the main bastion for for the supports and trying to keep the supports alive. Because obviously Zenyatta's kit is less stunning. You don't have the sleep dart that Ana has to be able to deal with that. So you're reliant on the Cassidy for a lot more protection, as well as the Brigitte. And yeah, it makes sense as a hack target because they can literally do nothing, and it means that Marvel can dive you, Victoria can dive you without any problem, and they can just burst you down. And then it's a 5v4. And as we all know from Overwatch, you know, you go into a one-sided fight, you're bound to get boomed, essentially. I'm glad I stopped on this frame, but I'll talk about this frame in a second. Lemon, what does Scrim mean? Scrim's just a practice match, Lemon. It's literally just like two professional teams say, hey, you want to practice? Yeah, sure. They go into a practice match. I guess in British football, you could call it a friendly. But in this, it's called scrimming. You know, I find it interesting. A scrim. It's a scrim. If you're a rugby fan, it's a scrum. It's a scrim. Okay. Whoops. Here we go. Bam. Massive, massive EMP coming out from Valentine here. It's an interesting word. It is, isn't it? But a humongous EMP comes out from Valentine. And Checkmate responds with a really, really good pulse bomb onto Blueberry. I think as he pops Rally as well, so there's no Rally going into this. But MCD's already managed to get Transcendence out. No, Transcendence is finishing. Whoopsie. So even though Valentine manages to get like a massive hack, because Blueberry's already dead, and because Transcendence, I think, is already over, the EMP just did not matter. And it means that Florida are able to just go in and be hyper aggressive and get like a lot of work done. And they actually end up winning that fight and turning it, which is, again, quite interesting. Oh, nice. Someone in on this Gibraltar map didn't look too bad. Thought someone looked pretty good. Okay. Once again, I want to see what happens next. Hack target this time. Valentine puts a hack onto Samajed. Hey, here's another interesting thing about this workshop build. They I can't remember what it's actually called, but in the Overwatch 2 gameplay trailers and in what the team have spoken about so far, they basically get rid of the idea of like armor, extra shields and stuff like that. And I think they turn it into a different color. They turn it green, don't they? Based on the fact that it's just like a cumulative amount of extra health. So they actually represent that here in the Overwatch build. It's actually down there. I haven't seen that teal color before, and if I have, I'm clearly more colorblind than I thought. So, interesting. Simply interesting. Like, honestly, I'm really, really intrigued. Once again, high ground control is king for Gibraltar, but it's interesting that they only have one D.Va to deal with it. Okay, that was cool. The way that they have to position D.Va up here and the way they have to position their supports is that D.Va, so someone has to peel back immediately. They are in a position where they can go aggressive, but they're also in a position where they can come back like a lot. Because Marvel really did nearly get Samajed there. I think the Marvel could have gotten Samajed there pretty easily. Nice bomb. RIP. Not RIP. Okay. I mean, fair play. Nice bomb though from Victoria. What a great bomb. There's no risk of a Discord orb there. That's really, really good. Love that. Checkmate's almost dead, and then that's really, really good play there from Boston. How do they get them off the high ground? What forces them down? Is it this bomb? Does this bomb force them off the high ground? They're still on the high ground at this point in time. Arnemo's dead. Marvel comes up to the high ground. The hack onto someone means that someone is unable to peel for the team. Yeah, they're just trying to run away. They're just trying to run away and get point pressure. They have to drop. They're forced off because of Victoria's pressure, because of the excellent hack from Valentine, and they're just able to clean up. Yeah, I gotta say, man, it's cool. So it seems like 5v5 feels more like aggressive dive plays than hold out picks. I mean, at least from what we've seen in the past 15 minutes. Well, the thing is, we just do not know. we're not going to know because this just isn't a final build of the game. We don't even know if it's an official workshop build, but I think what people were thinking would happen is that hit scan would end up being really strong because of the lack of that extra tank. What has also ended up looking really strong, at least in this and these escort maps, where you're moving positioning a lot and you're having to like find high ground control, is a more mobile composition, which has a lot of flanking capability, and it's easier to execute the flanking because there is that extra space that, because of the vacancy of an extra tank, you have a lot more space to work with. All right, so I found this bit really, really interesting. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking this has got to be a win for Boston. I don't think it is. Another hack comes out from Valentine, but Mira manages to catch Victoria. This is just like a ridiculous team fight turnaround. Ridiculous. Like Mira pops off here, you know? Mira absolutely pops off. Yeah, go do your cooking and stuff, Nikki. Look after yourself. I appreciate you jumping in. They do manage to get a consolation, which is Marvel, but I think I can't remember how this game ends. I really cannot remember how this game ends whatsoever for the life of me. But decent fight for Florida, even though that really should have been Boston's based on the amount of ultimates. Like, you have to wonder entirely what the hell happened there and how Mira was allowed to get so many picks, but interesting. Always here to support your L stuff. Yeah, you're a blessing. You're an absolute blessing. I just still enjoy this stuff. It's good. I said I'd only run for an hour. Look at me. Look at me. Nice little dive attempt from Checkmates. Imagine manages to finish it off anyway. And this is where Tracer is just so friggin' effective. Because, again, there's a lack of there's a lack of stun. There's a lack of tank. There's so much open space. Tracer can just run wild. It's actually amazing how much value Tracer is going to be. I remember back in Season 1, we legitimately basically only saw Tracer gameplay in DPS. Tracer was a must-pick hero. A lot of this season as well, Tracer was a must-pick hero. And once again, I think we're going to go into another season where Tracer's probably going to be a must-pick hero. So, we'll see what happens. Nice team fight though there. I'm surprised that once again Florida have managed to sort of like pick it up, but then they have good positioning here. One of the things that's really interesting about this scrim is that this is like the third or fourth time I've watched this now, and yet I still don't get the sense that the map is that much more empty, even though there is a lot more flanking space for the DPS on the opposing teams to work with. I find that really interesting. You know? Yeah, just a little side note here. Okay. Marvel's got bomb. Marvel goes in with bomb. Valentine has EMP, but currently hasn't been able to find any value out of the EMP whatsoever. I think that's worth a discussion at some point, but I'll look a little bit more into that. I don't have any solid thoughts right now. MCD basically has trance. Blueberry basically has rally. MCD has trance. Mirror on the opposition side has a Deadeye. And Arnamo has a rally as well. A bomb engage. Bomb catches nothing. They use EMP with bomb as well, I think, to try and get value from that, and don't. Wait, who did they EMP? Did they get anyone from that? Who does Valentine get from that? Oh, they're trying to EMP MCD so that they can't pop trance. Not MCD, sorry. They're trying to... Are they trying to EMP Samajed or Animo so that they can't pop Bolt? Yeah, it basically holds no value. Again, this is a really, really interesting bit, right? So this is another instance where the teams have done this. We double dive, and they've basically gone into each other's backline. You can only see it from someone's perspective here, but they go into the backline. Valentine's managed to pop Mirror. Someone's managed to pop MCD. And you've now got Florida going into the opposing spawn of the Boston players. And basically the Boston players that were diving the backline of Florida have now turned around, come back to their spawn and go, hey, what's a pincer? This is a pincer attack now. And now it's basically looks like this is an out-and-out team fight. near enough, with the casualty being Valentine there for Boston. Yeah. Nice. I wouldn't say it's a free team fight win, but it's really interesting how, you know, the different space complications on the map just changes the way that things work. That being said, that obviously could happen in the game today, but it's just interesting how much more apparent it is with one less player. Hack tries to come out. Mirror manages to catch MCD. Deadeye onto Marvel. Nice timing. Love that. Victoria and MCD both basically have ultimate. Same on the other side, apart from someone has a bomb as well. No high ground control at this current point in time. Okay, Victoria was not in the server. Cool. It is a scrim after all. Mirror goes aggressive. Trying to hold him at the door. Find a pick maybe onto Samajed. Got to get rid of him for trance. Valentine approaching another ultimate. Valentine has currently had 0 impact with EMP. Will they get any impact with EMP? Manual hacks have been good. 0 EMP impact. Nothing whatsoever. Someone throws a bomb in. Bomb catches no one. Mirror catches Valentine. No EMP. Mirror catches Blueberry. Okay. Interesting. The rally comes out from Arnamo. They're going to close this out. That's that. Florida Mayhem basically closed that out.